How's it going, everybody? I've got another dispatch from the ongoing state of the cultural civil war. Because yesterday, we learned that someone at Google drafted what's being called a 10-page anti-diversity manifesto that says Google is an ideological echo chamber that silences conservatives and that they promote biological diversity over ideological diversity. So as you'd expect, Twitter has become a dumpster fire of people slinging mud at each other. You get people on the far left complaining about misogyny, people on the far right calling the left cucks. You know how it goes. But this manifesto is apparently going viral within Google. So let's talk about what's inside of this. The first thing that the writer opens up with is that there are biases between the left and the right, that disparities in the workplace are either just or unjust. And he goes on to say that neither side is 100% correct, and both viewpoints are necessary for a functioning society. But just after that is where it starts getting controversial, where he starts talking about the biological differences between men and women. And he says, women are empathetic. They have more openness directed towards feelings and aesthetics rather than ideas. Women generally also have a stronger interest in people rather than things relative to men, also interpreted as empathizing versus systemizing. And his personal evidence is that men may like coding because it requires systemizing, and even within SWEs, comparatively, more women work on front end, which deals with both people and aesthetics. But even after saying that there may be a fundamental difference between men and women, he also says that you can't really tell anything about an individual based on these population level statistics. The writer recommends that instead of asking why aren't women taking high-paying, high-stress jobs, we should be asking why men are taking high-paying, high-stress jobs. And he believes this is due to the male gender role requiring a higher degree of status. He goes on to say, status is the primary metric that men are judged on, pushing many men into these higher-paying, less satisfying jobs for the status that they entail. Note, the same forces that lead men into high-pay, high-stress jobs in tech and leadership cause men to take undesirable and dangerous jobs like coal mining, garbage collection, and firefighting, and suffer 93% of work-related deaths. Following this, he offers some solutions to balancing the representation between men and women without being discriminatory, like saying they should have collaborative programming or more part-time work. He then goes on to list some of the things he thinks Google has done wrong and society is doing wrong. A few of the things he says, one, that the moralization of ideology is wrong because it makes anyone who disagrees immoral. Going on to say that as soon as we start to moralize an issue, we stop thinking about it in terms of cost and benefits, dismiss anyone that disagrees as immoral, and harshly punish those we see as villains to protect the victims. He also adds that Google needs to stop discriminatory practices of hiring based on race and gender, saying, discriminating just to increase the representation of women in tech is as misguided and biased as mandating increases for women's representation in the homeless, work-related and violent deaths, prisons, and school dropouts. So it's not surprising to see that something like this is happening within Silicon Valley, which many people often say is like a den of progressives and often is very biased. But it's not over yet because Danielle Brown, the new VP of Diversity, issued a statement in response to this memo going viral saying, many of you have read an internal document shared by someone in our engineering organization, expressing views on the natural abilities and characteristics of different genders, as well as whether one can speak freely of these things at Google. And like many of you, I found that it advanced incorrect assumptions about gender. I'm not going to link to it here as it is not a viewpoint that I or this company endorses, promotes, or encourages. Almost right away, the response from the VP of Diversity confirms some of what the memo was saying. That some ideas are not okay. That Google flat out says they will not promote or encourage these ideas. The VP wouldn't even share a link to the article. So you have to remember, most people probably don't know what this memo was. They probably haven't read it. And all of a sudden they're seeing this statement in the press from the VP of Diversity, and they're probably saying, what are they talking about? And so it's intellectually dishonest to not share the information with someone and say, hey, we're talking about this thing, you can find it here. So that's kind of why I feel like it's sort of confirming at least some of what was in the memo. That people need to know about what you're talking about if you're going to talk about it. Brown goes on to say, part of building an open, inclusive environment means fostering a culture in which those with alternative views, including different political views, feel safe sharing their opinions. But that discourse needs to work alongside the principles of equal employment found in our code of conduct, policies, and anti-discrimination laws. Basically, let me give you the shorthand. The VP wants to make sure that people have this perception of Google being a free and open place to talk about their ideas. That people who might actually be concerned about oppression, about people being shamed or villainized for having the wrong idea, she wants to make sure that perception doesn't exist. And she wants to make sure that she's following the law. This is your typical PR statement. It feels like it's not even addressing any of the issues. It's simply saying, we respect freedom of speech, we respect diversity, not really engaging with what was said in the memo. I don't want to say that the VP of diversity is left or right. You know, often it is considered like a left and right thing. Even in this memo, it says there's differences between the left and the right. But that's not what this is. They are people who believe in the free exchange of ideas and not ragging on other people, who want to have a real discussion and come up with real solutions. And statements like this, where we will not promote or encourage or share a link to an article that someone wrote, is dishonest. It's intellectually dishonest. And it's not about a left or right issue, because there's a ton of people online, shitlords, people who are very liberal, even progressive, who are still saying, no, but I'm progressive, but you're allowed to say what you want. But of course, even saying any of these things is met with derision. Twitter has erupted. Like I said before, people are just ragging on the article. And this also kind of confirms a bit of what was said in the memo, that you are shamed, you are attacked, ridiculed for having the wrong ideas. And it's not just about these ideas. Basically, any idea you have is going to be met with ridicule by someone somewhere. And that's unfortunate. Now, I have personal experience dealing with far progressive echo chambers. Not too long ago, I was invited to an event called, I think it was like the Summit for Social Change, I think. It was in London, and YouTube was putting on this convention to bring in a bunch of creators and talk about how to end hate. Because YouTube is considered a very hateful place. The comments are always angry, people are always yelling at each other, insulting each other. I actually walked out of the event within a relatively short amount of time. And you know why? It's because this group was almost entirely far left progressives, and several of the speakers immediately went up on stage and started making fun of people, ragging on people who disagreed with them. They were insulting white people, making jokes at the expense of white people, and they were making fun of Trump supporters. Now, I don't care what your opinion on white people is. I don't care if you're somebody who's on the left who thinks that white people should be able to take a joke. That's not the issue. The issue is you're not going to convince people who disagree with you by insulting them or making fun of them. That's just not what's going to happen. You can't host an event saying, we're here to end hate speech, and then start shit-talking people. That pissed me off. I want to see real change. I want to see people come together, talk about their ideas, come up with real solutions. But when you shut people down, when you insult people, you are doing the exact opposite. And this goes for everyone on the left and the right. I hear a lot from people on both sides saying, it's a lost cause, it's wasted breath, these people are too far gone. Something that I've said before recently is that we are the summation of the people who surround us. So if you are not willing to engage someone with these ideas, you'll never change their idea. You will never move forward. And all that's going to happen is people will slowly move further and further away from each other. And I feel like this is how I wrap up all of the videos I make about this. The worst part is, I'm going to assume that most of you who are watching this completely agree that we should have an open and free exchange of ideas if we want to solve our problems. That's one of the biggest problems online, is that people filter themselves into echo chambers. And I can sit here all day and say, hey man, do your best to get ideas from everybody. But if you're watching me, then you're someone who already agrees for the most part. So the question then becomes, how do we reach people who refuse to leave their echo chamber? And the reality is, you have to be nice to people, you have to be willing to listen to people, and you have to engage in friendly conversation on a daily basis. These reactions from the people who are upset with this memo, the reaction from Google, is not the correct response. It's just going to make the problems worse. But let me know what you think. Comment below if you want to share your thoughts on the matter. We'll keep the conversation going. And click the like button if you like the video. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Timcast. If you want to support the work that I do, you can go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like, give nothing at all. My videos will always be free and available every day at 4 p.m. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.